What is up, everybody? It is Alex from Heavy New York calling from the quarantine zone again, and this time we are here with Matt, aka Unholy Weaver of Shadows and Incantations of Bewitcher. Thank you so much for your time today. It's great to have you here.
Hey man, thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's so awesome to have you here because we have a great 2021 ahead of us with a brand new Bewitcher album, Cursed Be Thy Kingdom. Do you feel that the first single that you released, Mystifier, also known as a White Night City, maybe serves as like a clear representation of what the whole album is going to sound like, or is that just one little taste of it?
I definitely think it's more of a one-off kind of song. The idea was to have a couple of singles that sort of where we can kind of go off and explore some different areas of the sound that we already, have. So like emphasizing a little more of the rock and roll elements, a little more of the traditional heavy metal. And, but I don't think it represents like the whole album overall. I think you're just going to see a mix of some of that curveball stuff, but a lot of the classic kind of material as well.
Awesome. Was there kind of like a preconceived idea of what you wanted Cursed Be Thy Kingdom to sound like? Or was there maybe like a lot of experimentation or trial and error or like, improvising involved?
The songwriting process kind of stayed the same as it always has been. It's just about like, just kind of doing what comes natural, and then if that means some things kind of change up here and there, then so be it. We're not going to shy away from that kind of thing. But yeah, no, it hasn't really changed that much.
Okay, so
there was no set plan or anything like that.
Okay, so people who were, jamming to Under the Witching Cross or, the self-titled album are definitely going to get a feel of this album too, right? It's not too much of a drastic change or anything like that.
It just depends on your taste, man. I think there's going to be people that probably like the first album because of the fact that it's all fast and it's all furious and just everything, and they don't want to see any kind of change. They want us to do that album over and over again. They might be disappointed, but I think everybody else is going to dig it because we're growing as a band, but we're still the same band. So yeah, I think people are going to love it.
Yeah, I think
if they like the old stuff.
I think it's technically like physically impossible for a band to sound the same. Like I could even like pinpoint, Cannibal Corpse is always death metal, but like I could even pinpoint like, okay, they took this approach on Gallery of Suicide, or they changed things up here on Kill or Evisceration Plague. So I think in the end, you grow and develop as an artist, so there's going to be a lot of change that comes into play, right?
Yeah, I mean, we're human beings, man. We evolve over time. So if you're creative and you're sort of putting yourself into those things that you're making, it's going to sound different, as the years go on. So yeah. I think that's natural and kind of the point of the whole point of the thing,
Yeah. Do you feel that maybe like every album is kind of like a self-portrait or kind of like a representation of who you and the rest of the band were at that particular time? Like I know you don't use the Unholy Weaver alias anymore, which I still think, come on, man, that's amazing. At least make that your solo project in the future.
We'll see what happens with that. Yeah, you never know. Yeah, man, that's it though. Like you just, I think you have to embrace the fact that things are going to change a little bit from time to time, and as time goes on, it's kind of the beauty of it, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. And it seems like I from listening to the new album, like it feels like it was very organic. It didn't seem like, nothing was forced or like this was a filler or this was a dud, or like it seemed like this was a very organic process for the making of Cursed Be Thy Kingdom, right?
Yeah, like I said, the songwriting process has kind of been the same since the beginning. So I'll usually kind of sit around making, writing riffs, putting the songs together. I'll get with Andy. We'll kind of do like a loose demo of everything, and then just kind of build the song from there. And it that was the process here too. It was the organic, just kind of build the parts as they come, and then we'll get together in the jam room and hash it out and kind of tweak things until it's done.
That's going to be your subgenre, like people have called you thrash or black and thrash or just straight up rock. Your style is all organic metal.
Oh, so it goes well with our location being in Portland, Oregon,
Yeah, absolutely.
All organic.
Yeah, all organic heavy metal. And it speaks a lot because it speaks volumes because there's a lot of phenomenal bands that come out of Portland. So,
yeah, for sure.
Yep. Now, has there ever been a time where in the songwriting process that maybe like a lyrical concept or maybe some sort of vocal idea could dictate the direction of the music, or has music always needed to be put in place before a concept happens?
It happens kind of both ways, I guess. like I usually get a lot of titles and like lyrical, just like lines that I'll just jot down that pop into my head. And, you know, it's all on my phone, you know, I just kind of reference it when I need it. And sometimes like a song title could influence like how a riff sounds. Like maybe I need to like just write something that sounds like this title, you know. Sounds weird, but that does happen sometimes. But a lot of the time it's usually just like get the music together and then try to fit lyrics to it later on.
Do the inspiration for for some of these titles or these ideas, do they come out of the blues sometimes, or do you kind of have like a usual place or like a usual go-to studio mode in order for those ideas to flourish?
No, it like happens like pretty much just in daily life, you know. Like I just like playing with words a lot. So, you know, if I come across something, you know, just that I'm watching, you know, on the internet or just in real life or whatever, it just it can inspire some kind of something that represents or like vaguely resembles a song title, and then I'll just kind of tweak the words and kind of move them around until I get something that sounds like solid, you know.
Okay, so you avoid the pitfall of having like the best lyrics ever, but then they're always like one syllable over or under like the arrangement of everything, right?
Yeah, that's part of the process of just like whittling it down and making sure that it's like in line with everything, you know, and that the song works together instead of, you know, having parts fighting each other or whatever. Yeah, exactly. The one syllable thing always gets you.
Yeah. Does inspiration sometimes strike like when you least expect it, sometimes at like the most inconvenient times as well?
That's when the best ideas come, when you can't do anything about them. That's why like phones are good, you know, because you can just scream a riff into your voice app or whatever.
Yeah.
Or, you know, just if you have a guitar handy, you can get it down. But yeah, it's always the least opportune times that the best ideas come.
I've always said that it terrifies me to think that some of the greatest like classic rock albums or like some of the greatest stuff from back in the 70s or early, like think about how many amazing ideas came from musicians that we love that are just forgotten about now. That could have been like Appetite for Destruction, Back in Black level, just incredible.
For real, dude. And that's the funny thing. It's like I've probably forgotten more riffs than I've ever recorded. But that's the way it goes, you know?
Yeah. I've always said that that's rock and roll purgatory, the realm of forgotten riffs.
Yeah, maybe someday we'll be able to gain access to that, like some sort of ethereal plane that they just still exist on, you know? They're just floating around out there. Just grab riffs.
I wouldn't be surprised if Elon Musk is working on it right now.
I certainly hope so.
Yeah. Definitely. And kind of like when it comes to like this material, do you find it easier when you're with the company of your other bandmates to kind of like make the ideas flow through, or do you know, isolation being the source of creativity for what it is, do you maybe find it easier to maybe like come up with riff ideas or lyrical ideas when you're more or less kind of like alone in your own comfort zone in a way?
Yeah, I'm kind of a solitary person like that, so I definitely do most of the songwriting like on my own. And then as far as like the basic structures of the songs, and then like all that little fine detail stuff, it has to be done with the band because they've got to put their stamp on it too. You know, everybody in the band's got to be able to, you know, put their signature style into the song to make it come to life. You know, when I'm just putting the song together, it's kind of, it always sounds a little stilted and a little rigid because it's just not done yet. And then having everybody putting that human feel into it is what makes it pop, you know?
Yeah. And you've also played with other bands as well. Like, correct me if I'm wrong, but you've also played with Catharsis back in the day and Stone Creep and Dominus Morte as well, right?
Yeah. I mean, everybody's got their old bands, you know?
Yeah. And like,
gotta start somewhere.
Yeah. And I mean, it's always cool. I always like seeing like, you know, the previous like bands that people are into, to see like, you know, the evolution. Has like maybe working with those bands helped shape the idea of what you want Bewitcher to sound like in a way? Yeah,
because I knew what I didn't want to sound like after I got done with those bands.
Yeah.
So. No, I mean, yeah, it's like a constant evolution, you know. I'm sure in 10 more years I'll want to do something else, or Bewitcher will be, you know, a stepping stone to some other project, you know, just because that's the nature of being creative in music. You always want to be trying new things. And not everything is going to work in the context of Bewitcher. You know, it's got to be within certain boundaries.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's always evolving.
Yeah, to quote Jim Carrey about Napalm Death, who knows, maybe you'll slow down and do some duets.
It's got a good beat and you can dance to it.
Yeah, I mean, I saw Goat Whore play at a wedding one time, so anything's possible.
Fuck yeah, man, that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah, getting slammed in the face by the bride. It's pretty metal. Wedding cake flying everywhere. It was.
That's right.
Yeah,
it's like the November Rain video. Ricky Rackman jumping through the wedding cake.
Yeah, pretty much. Except this was real, man. I thought.
Except this is the real.
I'm not even kidding. By the end of their set, it looked like an M80 just went off in the wedding cake.
That's fucking awesome, man. I love Goat Whore. Those guys are badass.
Yeah, definitely. Shout out to them. And when it comes to, though, playing with multiple bands throughout your career, does the mind frame of creativity change depending on the project you're with? Or, like, is there maybe, like, a usual method to creativity that applies to everything?
I guess it depends on who else is in the band, because they can have an impact on how, you know, that's stuff gets done. I guess with the last couple projects, it's been just me, like, you know, more or less making the music. So it's hard to say nowadays. I haven't, there's a lot of bands that aren't in the metal archives, you know, kind of section of my world that I've done more direct collaborations with other musicians, and it's a different process altogether. So it really just depends on who I'm working with, I guess.
Yeah, I've always said that with Century Media now signing so many like badass, like, you know, real extreme metal bands with bands like you, and, you know, having Aborted and Lorna Shore, and I mean, who else? Frozen Soul they just signed.
Right.
You know, I believe Blood Incantation is on there. Like, it's insane, like, how many extreme metal bands Century Media has been signing. So I always thought that, like, Century Media should do like a kind of like what Roadrunner United did, almost kind of like an extreme collaborative death metal project.
Interesting. It's current kind of trend of death metal bands becoming more prominent. You might see something like that down the road.
Yeah, absolutely. If you could collaborate with any like death metal musician, who would it be?
Haha. I got to be honest. I'm a little out of the death metal game these days. It's been a long time since I really got into it. You know who's awesome? Who I've gotten into recently was 1914. 1914, yeah.
Oh, they're cool.
The band from Ukraine.
Okay, yeah, they're pretty
They're
cool.
sick.
They're pretty cool. And like with Century Media too, it just seemed like they were the perfect label to work with, right? With your style of music, right? I mean, because even with signing bands, I mean, I don't think they're around anymore, but Red Death was on Century Media as well. So like, there's a lot of like new age thrash, new age death metal. They just seemed like they were the perfect label to be with at the time for your style, right?
I think with their recent like acquisition sort of binge that they've been on, it did turn out that way. I mean, for us, it could have worked with them. I think it could have worked if we'd have stayed on the independent scene for a little bit longer. But luckily, we kind of had this like crossroads moment where it was like, well, we need to expand, you know, kind of, we want to get out and do bigger tours and that kind of thing. Century Media is interested. They've been following us for a couple of years. Let's get together and see what kind of deal we can hash out. And it kind of all came together at that perfect moment. So here we are.
Yep. Absolutely. And I also think that there should be a Century Media Death Fest. Like, you guys, Art of Shock, Aborted, Dark Tranquility. Like,
yeah, a little old, little new. That'd be cool.
Yeah. The old and the new. And make it like a stage off. Like, you have the stages versus each other.
All right. Man, you should talk to these guys and get them on this stuff.
Yeah, let's make this happen. I have two more questions for you. You ready for the most difficult question of the whole interview?
Oh, geez. Hold on. All right, go.
All right. We're going back to songwriting now. How do you know when a song is done?
But that's the thing. It's never done, is it?
You had that written down, right? Every artist says that. It's like cheating.
Well, and the only reason I say that is just because knowing that you have these songs that are like in Bewitcher that are like 7 years old now from the first album, maybe even older than that. When you play them live, man, they just keep on evolving. You keep doing different things with them. You might the drums might change in this one spot, and then that inspires the guitar to do something different, and then it just like now this new part exists in the song that the album version doesn't have. So yeah, they just kind of always evolve, keep going.
Absolutely. And I'd imagine playing live is like a completely separate energy from songwriting as well, right? Like it almost seems like they're two separate arts that you have to master. That's why we have some studio bands, and then there's some, you know, like, do you feel that playing live and songwriting are completely separate arts?
Yeah, I mean, I think on the bass line it is. It kind of feels like an extension of it now. Whereas like the live thing, we know that we're going to be going out and doing this if, you know, obviously once we can again. But so I think that it just, you internalize that as like, okay, songs are done. Now we got to go out and we got to keep this thing going. And so the mindset just sort of like shifts gears, but doesn't necessarily like, it's not like necessarily a different thing altogether. It's just kind of a next aspect of it, you know?
Mm-hmm. And the final question I wanted to ask you is one of my favorite questions to ask, because I'm been like obsessed right now with the Portland, Oregon metal scene. Like one of my personal favorite bands to rise. They were called Idle Hands. They just changed their name to Onto Others. Really, I'd imagine you guys have played it together or have seen each other live at some point. Or you know, Toxic Holocaust coming from there. You know, Yob and Bellwitch and so many great doom bands. Was there kind of like a scene that Bewitcher really cut their teeth in, or was the goal for Bewitcher to kind of play outside your state lines a little bit more to get the name out there?
Yeah, I think when we started, I think we started playing shows in like 2015. We didn't start touring until a couple years later. So there was definitely like that period of like we were the local band, you know, and like Idle Hands, Unto Others, you know, they have members of you know, the old band Spellcaster.
Yep.
We're all good buddies. You know, we all, you know, our drummer hangs out with their drummers, and like we've all just hung out and partied together quite a bit and played some shows together. So yeah, I forgot what the original question was.
No. You were answering it but like there is kind of like, obviously there's no scene anywhere right now without shows happening, but it does seem like there is a very prominent metal scene as well, right?
Yeah, for sure. And like it's cool. It's before all this happened, I think that we had a very healthy, you know, scene of bands that were, and a lot of them were going on to do some really cool stuff. You know, I mean, you had Unto Others touring with King Diamond and that kind of shit. You know, it's just it's really awesome to see some of those guys had their hard work pay off.
Absolutely,
including us.
Yeah, I feel like Portland is kind of like the real like. I don't know, because, you know, like, Seattle is the grunge capital, Massachusetts is the metalcore capital, LA is the glam capital, Florida is the death metal capital. But, like, what's cool about Portland is that, like, I can't associate you with one genre. I thought it was, like, the doom metal capital, but I think Colorado has had a lot more doom metal bands come out. But, like, I feel like, you know, you have thrash bands, you have doom bands, you have rock bands. It just seems like a very diverse scene as well.
Portland is just sort of weirdly eclectic like that, so it doesn't surprise me that the metal scene fragmented that way, you know, so that you have this band that's known for this thing and this band that's known for this thing, and they all get kind of lumped into the Portland scene, but none of them sound alike. And yeah, you can't pin it down to one genre for sure, which is cool in its own way, you know.
People move to LA to be rock stars. I think people move to Portland if they don't know what style of music they want to be, but they want to be musicians. That's where where they travel to.
Yeah, and there's a hell of a lot of talent, so it's pretty cool to be around it.
Absolutely. So before we go, I want to thank you so much for your time. It's great to be able to chat with you. Is there just anything else with Bewitcher that you would like to promote for the release of the new album, in terms of maybe like a live stream performance to hold people over, new merch, or anything else you'd like to plug?
Yeah, we're going to be doing a thing this weekend, actually. We're going to be doing some filming, sort of, not necessarily a live stream, but something along those lines, and it'll be coming out in the next few weeks, right around the time that the album comes out. And we'll be, you know, kind of filtering content out after that towards the summer, and then we'll be working on new material probably in the summertime with some demos and stuff. So there'll be things happening.
You guys are keeping busy. I love it.
Doing what we can.
Yeah. But thank you so much, everybody. We are here with Bewitcher, Cursed Be Thy Kingdom, coming out via soon via Century Media Records. This is Alex from Heavy New York, and we will see you next time.
Oh.